Welcome back to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good. And we get to talk about home renovations, remodeling, and so much more. We're here with Dan Bird, owner and president of the Dan Company. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Before we dive into all the good you do, give us a little bit of your backstory, because you've had a chance to work literally from Alaska coast to coast. So talk about getting to Nashville and getting into the home remodeling and construction business.
I grew up in Connecticut in a very historical town. We've got houses dating back to the 1700s. I cut my teeth, summers working for local contractors, painting, scraping, lifting, moving, boards and such. I graduated high school. I did not have a very long career in college in Wisconsin, but I ended up being handyman there as well. My dad gave me all of his old tools. So I had all these tools from the 70s that had frayed plugs and wires, and they made better tools back then. So they lasted a lot longer than they do now. So I had those tools for many years. I moved to New Hampshire. I was trail crew for the Appalachian Mountain Club up there. So we fixed trails. So I got to do a lot of forestry work and just some simple building type things. In the summers back home, I was a framer for a local contractor and kind of remodeled houses with him. And then I met a ski and snowboard photographer in New Hampshire, and we traveled in the winter. We were in Utah, Oregon, Montana, and then we had an opportunity. And on the side, I was a handyman, so I was a framer through the winter. And I had a boss. His passion was hang gliding. So when the skies were blue and nice, he would go out and hang glide. And when the snow fell on the mountains up above, then he knew I wasn't showing up for work. I said, "There's no work on powder days." So I was a ski bum. It brought me to Alaska. And up there, I had the opportunity to become a painting contractor. And I worked for a gentleman who knew us from the Alta Ski Lodge in Utah. He owned 7 car dealerships. And he said, "Hey, if you two knuckleheads want to come up here, I'll put you to work doing maintenance on all the buildings." So I kind of gathered my construction career by just never saying no to anything and really screwing a lot of stuff up. And then trying to go back and fix it. There was no YouTube videos. There wasn't anything. I remember one time we made a deal with the guy to paint these 4 or 5 utility buildings, like big commercial buildings, and they were just warehouses, so it was hard to screw it up. And we ended up painting the neighbor's building by accident, by subbing it out to another painter friend of ours. And we come back from a nice weekend out on the lake, and we see the wrong building was painted, and we had to go with our tail between our legs to his neighbor and say, "Hey, sorry, we painted your building the same color as everybody else's." And we said, "But it's going to cost $4,000 and you can have a free paint job in this giant building." And he handed us $4,000 and we moved on with our lives. So I've had a very sordid past in learning how to do this. When I was in Alaska and no longer a ski bum full time, I was playing music. So I moved to Music City. I had 10 songs on a demo, and same stories as everybody else. I moved here and I brought my truckload full of my dad's tools, and I just started handyman. And about 7 years after I moved here, I realized I was not a very good musician. So I decided to become a general contractor. And I was very disappointed with how people were treated in this town. From a construction standpoint, in the north, you can't build inexpensively because the weather will hammer it really quickly. And down here, it takes a long time for things to rot out. So you can get away with a lesser quality product. It lasts a lot longer. So I brought all of my building experience from the north, because that's where I always built. And there's a funny story about that we can get into later about where the frost line is here in Tennessee versus the northern states. But anyway, that's how I got here. And in 2010, I bought a chop saw and a pickup truck, and I went back to work after playing music for a number of years. And then in 2013, I got my GC license. There were a couple of investors. It was really hot to trot to build the tall skinnies back then. I built 3 houses for some investors right a month after getting my license. and I didn't enjoy the new construction experience, the spec home building. And I got back into what I think is my bread and butter, which is renovation, maintenance, repair, and really just kind of bringing houses back to life.
Talk about where you like to start when it comes to especially renovations and having the conversation with a homeowner in terms of what they envision and what that process is going to look like and the timing with the supply chain and everything else. Talk about kind of the process and the communication with the homeowners.
So typically I'll show up and a client will have these HGTV dreams, and I will typically go, well, I know that you want this beautiful master bathroom. I said, but your roof is falling in. And so what I do is I do a sort of a whole house quick systems checklist. I try to investigate as much of the plumbing, the electrical. I'm a house maintenance guy first and a make it pretty second. I think that people's dollars are better spent in a well-maintained home than they are in making it pretty. There's plenty of guys out there that'll make it pretty and ignore all of the things that are sort of, right in your face as real long-term problems, short-term problems as well. So I come in and I say, hey, we've got this, we've got this, we've got this. Where do you want to start? I mean, I've had people come and say, we want a screen and porch and we want to build this master suite addition. And I end up putting a new roof on, a whole new HVAC system, refinish the floors, paint the house. And they didn't get anything they wanted, but now what they have is correct. And so my first goal is always to maintain the house, make sure it's going to be a good long-term investment for them before we start sinking some money in, and then find out later when we spent all our money, we need a new hot water heater. As far as supply chain issues go, my business mentor, he's always like, hey, we should buy a pallet of nails. We should definitely buy, what type of trim do we use all the time? We should buy cases of it and just have it in the yard. And I said, man, in renovation work, I'm not a track home builder. I don't build, 100 houses a year. So I'm not trying to stock up on 2x4s. I can go to Home Depot and get 30 2x4s today. And so when you're renovating, you have a lot more options. There's a lot more choice because you're dealing with an existing space. So if the tub that you have is on back order for a year, my suggestion is we go find a tub that looks just like it and just put that in. And people are coming around to these types of flexibilities, but I have not had a huge problem. If someone wants a fixture and that's the fixture, like we waited a year for a tub from a particular vendor for a beautiful renovation we're doing, and the client was just overwhelmed, flabbergasted. I needed this tub, like my bathroom's done, all that's missing is the tub. And so we went on an internet website and we found the tub. So the exact same tub in stock, it shipped, and we got it in 3 days, and we've been waiting a year for it. So there's all these random things that we have to start scouring for in order to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish.
Go back and mention the frost side, but tie that to some of the differences between, as you said, being a builder in the north where you have the winters and the weather is a huge factor. And so quality becomes really, really important. Tying that to some of the differences that you were able to notice in Nashville and in Middle Tennessee. So talk about the difference, in other words, but also to the frost side of things.
So the frost story is quick, and it's a funny story. And a lot of northern builders actually end up with this same story. So I had a crew building decks about 9 years ago. We were building this deck, and I said, all right, boys, let's dig down 48 inches, 42 inches. So we're digging down 4 feet in the ground to put these piers in. And we dug, and my guys are looking at me and they're like, why are we digging these holes so deep? And I said, because this deck's never going anywhere. It's never going to move. It's not going to creak. The boards aren't going to, we're going to dig the holes. And so they dug the holes. And then the next day, a colleague came over and he said, hey man, your guys told me you're digging 42-inch holes for these deck posts. And I said, yeah. I said, we want to get below the frost line. He goes, do you know where the frost line is in Tennessee? And I said, no. And he goes, you're standing on it. And I was like, oh, because when you build in Alaska, we're digging down, it's 6 feet, right? There's a 6-foot frost line. The ground is frozen, 9 months out of the year, 3 feet down. So even to get to warm dirt, and I just was baffled that I was making these guys work their tails off to get 4 feet in the ground, and the frost line's at 0. It's right at the grass level. So that's my frost story. But building up north, we're always worried about wind, water, damage. And so there are flashing techniques that we used up there for roofing systems, tying in dormers, step flashings, things that were just different. It's mandatory we put drip edge up north. The code in Davidson County, I was putting drip edge on houses, and roofers were looking at me strange. And I said, guys, you got to put the drip edge on it. And they said, we never put drip edge on it. And then 5 years later, Nashville, Davidson County catches up to the rest of the codes departments that are in these weather affected areas. And now it's a code to put drip edge on. So we were essentially ahead of the times.
Nice. Talk about Philanthropy. You are a part of 413 Strong and really helping men, giving them opportunities for jobs and training and skills. And so talk about the philanthropic side of what you're doing.
So I don't know if I'm a part of it. I volunteer my time. I'm interested in becoming more of a part of it. I think it's a fantastic program. When you look at the statistics of the men that graduate from there, I used to think it was a very low statistic. I think it's 31% of their candidates that come through, they do a 40-day program, but it actually takes about 15, 16 months, year and a half, 18 months for them to actually graduate from the program. I met Steve Norris doing a project at his house. He had a couple windows leaking, and he was wearing this t-shirt, 413 Strong. And I said, hey, what's that? And he's like, oh, it's this group. He's like, I'm retired, but I've taken over this group. It's actually a group that started by the YMCA. Many, many moons ago, they started their youth program, but the YMCA stops at age 18. So one of the facilitators of the YMCA group said, hey, what do we do about the guys from 18 to 29? Because we really need them to do something. We can get them so far, and then all of a sudden they're off into the wild, and decisions get made and poorly, and then they end up where they don't want to be, jail, they in court, just life is just handing all of us lemons, and there's got to be a way to make lemonade out of it. So about twice a month, I try to go down there. They do these Friday lunch and learns. It's basically, I sit in a room in front of 10 or 12 guys, how many guys are in that particular program, and they get to ask whatever questions they want. And I am brutally honest, from being a ski bum, my past music, it's a little sordid in some respects, and so I can relate a little bit to these guys. But I'm also a business owner in town, and I've got 20 employees, and I have to be responsible now, and I have to make good decisions, and I can see where they are, and a lot of them are in way worse shape than I ever was, and it's not really their doing. It's the environment that they were brought up in, and out of those 10 or 12 guys, only 3 of them are ever going to make it through. And I used to think, I was like, wow, is this the program? Like, can they do better than this? And after being there, where these guys' stories are just, it's traumatic to hear the story, not only traumatic to think about what they've gone through. And so I've always been an underdog guy, and I look forward to the day when one of these guys comes to me and says, hey, I like what you do. I like what you say. I really want to come work for your company. So what they do is they almost do this draft. They sort of take them around. They teach them a little HVAC. They teach them a little commercial construction. They teach them a little carpentry. And then there's these big companies in town that they do these signing days. And they go out and they say, hey, we want you to come work for us, or the guy chooses to come work for them, these big commercial companies. And I'm going, there's a fit here. There's a diamond in the rough for what we do. And I'm super excited for the first time we can hire somebody and get them on their feet. They have to graduate, they have to have $1,500 in the savings account. They have to have a car, pay for their own insurance. They have to be working at a job for, 3 months or something like that. So right now I bring them dinner on Thursday nights. And I try to bring them something that, is a little upscale, so they have a nice meal, and we just shoot the breeze, and they can talk about anything they want. I try to keep it super light. I ask them, if they could go anywhere in the world, where would they go? And then that usually unloads a wealth of their spirit, their ambitions, their past, where they've been. And, guys tear up just talking about what they want to do with the rest of their life. And they've got anywhere from 40 to 80 years left. And I just try to tell them, guys, I said, at 30, I found my mentor. I found God. This is where I was, where you're at, in a different place. I was a little more privileged than you were, so I'm not as far behind the ball as you guys might be, but I got down on my hands and knees and I said, hey, this is what you got to help me out here. And I've been being blessed ever since. So I'm just trying to pay it forward.
I love it. Switching back to the business side, what's your perspective on the hot market for Nashville, for Middle Tennessee, when you look at the housing market, but really what that means for home improvement, renovations, taking care of your property as an investment? Where do you stand on what's going on right now with Middle Tennessee?
I try to encourage people, if they want to do a renovation, people are still, there's a lot of old anecdotes and philosophies. Like, I don't want to be the nicest house on the block. And I said, well, your block is going to be the nicest block in the neighborhood. If you're the nicest house on the block next year, you won't be the following year. So it's really a risk reward scenario. These people have some disposable incomes. Nashville's a great place to come and relocate. Everybody's working from home for these giant companies, making good salaries. I said, listen, you got to throw away some of this stuff, because if I had known 12 years ago where we'd be today, I would have done nothing but bought houses and just fixed them and rented them, and then doubled the rent in 2018. So I'm saying you're still buying at the right time. And that is really hard for me to even say, for me to believe. And, I just tell clients, I'm like, in 5 years from now, you're going to be laughing about how little you spent on this. Construction costs have raised 50% in the last 5 years. So what we were charging 5 years ago, we used to charge, $100,000 for a garage with an apartment. And now they're anywhere from $200,000 to $400,000. And you're just going, man, how did this get so expensive so fast? One is building a reputable company with proper insurances and treating your employees right, and company culture. Like, company culture is not just for Amazon. Like, our guys have health insurance. Our guys use my tools, my trucks. They're not packing their own vehicles and driving to the job site with their own tools and getting 1099. So we are a W-2 company, and we're super proud of that. And we're super proud to keep that small town, take care of your employees mentality. And I said, if I can't do it this way, I'd go sell snow cones in Costa Rica. I'm sure there's a need for that.
I love it. Wrap up with website, contact information. Where can we go to learn more and to reach out?
Easy enough. dancompany.net. My name's Dan. There were a bunch of Dans when I was trying to name the company. My drywall man, my contractor mentor, we were all Dans. Let's just call it the Dan Company. So dancompany.net. We're here in Nashville. Have tools, will travel. I don't know what else there's to say. We'll treat you right.
Other than reach out, right? Reach out and get in touch.
That's right.
Well, Dan, greatly appreciate all you and your team are doing. Thank you for coming on the show.
Appreciate it. Thank you.